Your fingers are still curled around a handle that is no longer attached to anything. The ejection seat fired 40 seconds ago. The handle does not know that. Your hand does not know that. Somewhere below the ridge, a column of black smoke is writing your position across the sky so blue it looks like it was built to ignore you. You are on your back, volcanic rock pressing through the flight suit into your spine, scrub grass scratching the exposed skin on your neck. The smell reaches you in layers. Fuel first, then insulation burning at a temperature that turns rubber into something sweet and wrong, then dirt, then your own sweat carrying the chemical signature of adrenaline that has nowhere left to go. Your left hand is trembling against the ground. Your right hand is still locked around that handle. You have to look at your own fist and instruct it to open, finger by finger, like talking to a machine that has lost its operating language. Your radio housing is cracked down the center seam. Your knee is bleeding through the fabric in a pattern that looks almost deliberate. Your survival vest is still attached. Your helmet is gone. Somewhere downslope behind you, a helmet protects. A helmet also reflects light at 300 meters and tells a search team exactly what species of problem they are looking for. Hot wind moves across the slope, carrying grit and the sound of something mechanical. Not close, not yet, but east of the ridgeline men are already moving toward the smoke, because smoke in this terrain is not weather. Smoke is evidence. And evidence in this country moves through channels that do not include a Geneva Convention category for what you are about to become. You are alive inside a nation that has spent 4 decades preparing for exactly this kind of opportunity. You do not yet know how far you are from the border. You do not yet know how many hours of darkness remain. You know one thing, the sky does not care, and the men walking toward your wreckage do. 11 minutes ago, you were the pilot of an F-35A Lightning II traveling at 480 knots through airspace that your mission brief described as degraded. Degraded meant the surface-to-air threat had been suppressed. Degraded meant someone in an operations center looked at satellite imagery and electronic intelligence and decided the corridor was survivable. Degraded is a word that looks confident in a briefing room and dissolves the moment a radar that was supposed to be broken paints your airframe at combat altitude. The target was not Tehran. It was not a city. It was a mobile missile battery and an associated command node feeding proxy networks farther west. Washington called it a limited response after 72 hours of diplomatic language failed to contain a regional escalation that had been escalating for months. Every limited response looks precise on a PowerPoint slide. Clean geometry, surgical arrows, minimal collateral projections. Then the sky disagrees. First failure. The radar. You were told it had been degraded. It had not been degraded. It found you at altitude and it held you for 9 seconds before your threat warning system screamed a tone you had trained for but never heard outside simulation. Second failure, the mountain, an infrared search and track platform positioned on a peak that did not appear in your threat package. Nobody briefed it because nobody knew it existed or because somebody knew and the information did not survive the chain between knowledge and cockpit. The platform caught your engine exhaust during a defensive brake turn, quietly. Passively, no radar emission to warn you, just optics and math and a firing solution handed to a battery you never saw. Third failure, physics. A missile climbing through darkness faster than your countermeasures could redefine the problem. Your aircraft became a mathematics exercise measured in seconds. You remember the warning tone. You remember the jet rolling left without your input. You remember nursing an $80 million machine toward the Iraqi border with a flight control system, improvising around damage it was never engineered to survive. Then the fire warning, then the engine temperature climbing past every red line the designers ever drew, then the aircraft dying around you in layers like a building losing floors. You pulled the ejection handle 63 miles from friendly territory. That number is not a statistic. It is a sentence. It means no one is coming quickly. It means the architecture of rescue exists, but it exists on the other side of contested airspace, layered air defenses, fighter patrols, and a security apparatus that just watched you fall out of its sky. 63 miles. That distance will define everything that happens next. Training takes over because panic is a luxury reserved for people who are not already inside the kill chain. You roll onto your side and force yourself vertical. Your knee sends a signal that your brain files under functional. Pain means the joint still works. Broken means it does not. You are not broken. You begin the inventory. Sidearm, 9mm, 2 magazines, 34 rounds total. Enough to complicate a close encounter. Not enough to win one. The pistol stays hidden beneath the survival vest because a visible weapon changes the calculation for everyone who sees you, and not always in your favor. Survival radio, housing cracked but the internal circuit board is intact. You try power, static, a burst of encrypted noise like a door opening into a room you cannot enter, then nothing. You shut it off immediately. Every second on the air is a coordinate you are handing to direction finding teams who will build a box around your signal and then tighten it. Communication can save you. Communication can also end you. The distinction is not theoretical. Blood clotting bandage, water packets, 4, each one a decision you will have to make later about thirst now versus thirst tomorrow. Signal mirror, infrared strobe you cannot activate until extraction is confirmed because a strobe calls your people and it illuminates your position for everyone else. Folding map printed on waterproof stock. Escape and evasion card in Farsi and Arabic. Combat knife. Morphine syringe. 1. It removes pain. It also removes reaction time. In this environment, reaction time is the difference between a man who evades and a man who is found sleeping under a rock. Miniature GPS receiver. It tells you where you are. If they capture you with it powered on, it tells them where you have been. Every waypoint, every route, every pattern of movement that reveals which direction you are heading. Then the last item, folded into an interior pocket. Your blood chit. A piece of silk printed in 5 languages, promising a reward to anyone who returns you alive to American forces. The reward is generous. The punishment for the person who earns it is permanent. Everything you need to survive fits in 2 hands. Everything that can betray you fits in the same 2 hands. Somewhere right now, your wreckage is being processed by systems that do not pause for diplomacy. Iranian military radar tracked the engagement from launch to impact. Civilian witnesses in 3 villages saw the fireball and are already describing it into phones. Local police heard the concussion and are driving toward it. A district security commander is requesting jurisdiction he will not keep because within the hour, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps will assume control of everything inside a 5-kilometer radius of your crash site. Within 20 minutes, there will be a cordon. Within 60, there will be a command structure. Within 2 hours, images of American aircraft debris will be moving through encrypted channels toward offices in Tehran where men do not think in terms of wreckage. They think in terms of opportunity. They will search outward in concentric rings because geometry is doctrine, and doctrine is universal. They will assume you survived. Modern ejection seats are designed to preserve a human body through forces that disintegrate airframes. The engineers who built your seat did their job. The men now hunting you understand that. They know where a downed pilot goes. High ground, shade, concealment, maximum distance from the wreck in the direction of the nearest friendly border. They know this because they study your survival training. They read your field manuals. They war game your evasion corridors. Militaries learn from one another whether they acknowledge it or not. Your SERE doctrine is not a secret. It is a curriculum, and they have done the homework. Somewhere in an operations room, a colonel is assigning search sectors based on terrain analysis, water sources, road networks, and the mathematical probability of how far a wounded pilot can travel on foot before sunrise. He is calm. He has trained for this. Somewhere else, a political officer is already thinking past the tactical problem. He is not writing a capture report. He is drafting a press release. Not if they find you, when. Because a captured American pilot is not just an intelligence asset. It is leverage in 3 negotiations simultaneously. It is a bargaining chip that appreciates in value every hour it remains on camera. It is an image that can be displayed on state television, while back-channel diplomats discuss terms that will never appear in the broadcast. That image, one American pilot alive and disoriented under fluorescent lights while officials frame the narrative, can travel farther than any missile in their inventory. Faster, cheaper, with a blast radius measured not in meters but in news cycles. Somewhere on a hillside, you are pressing yourself into volcanic rock, trying to become invisible. Somewhere in Tehran, they are already choosing which camera angle works best. The hunt is not personal, it is structural. That makes it worse. You move after sunset because darkness is the only advantage you have left, and it is temporary. West is the Iraqi border. East is Tehran. North is mountain terrain without support infrastructure. South loops back toward military installations. The calculus is simple. West is survival. Every other direction is a version of capture measured in hours. The border is more than 50 miles away. Satellite imagery makes terrain look manageable. Flat contour lines, moderate elevation change, reasonable gradient. Then a wounded human being stands up and tries to cross it, and the landscape becomes a different problem entirely. Loose shale that shifts under every step and broadcasts noise. Dry stream beds that offer concealment but funnel you into natural ambush corridors. Goat paths that lead somewhere useful, or somewhere that ends in a village with a phone. You avoid roads. Roads are for vehicles and checkpoints and farmers who remember foreign faces for years. You choose the folds in the ground, the low places, the terrain that nobody maintains because nobody needs it. Your flight suit is the immediate problem. Flame resistant, durable, engineered for a cockpit environment, and unmistakably military to anyone within 100 meters. Under moonlight, the fabric catches light in a way that cotton does not. You stop in a dry wash at midnight and begin cutting. Outer layers torn away. Dirt rubbed into the remaining material. Ash from a dead campfire pressed into seams to kill the sheen. It does not make you local. Nothing on earth can make a 6-foot American with no language and no cover story into a Western Iranian villager. It only makes you less visible at distance. Less visible is enough. Less visible keeps you alive until the next decision. By the time you reach the first ridgeline, your knee has stiffened into something that functions through negotiation rather than mechanics. Each step is a conversation between your weight and the joint's willingness to bear it. You climb because low ground is exposure and high ground is options. Then you hear it, distant, a rhythmic percussion against the wind that your training identifies before your conscious mind does. Helicopter. You flatten beneath thorn brush and press your face into dirt that smells of iron and dried grass. The shape resolves low over the valley where your jet came apart. It circles once, then again. You count the rotor blades by sound. 5. That means a specific airframe. That airframe carries thermal imaging rated to detect a human body at 2 kilometers in clear conditions. The conditions are clear. You watch through stems and dust as vehicles thread up a dirt road below the crash site. White pickups, 1 dark green truck, men dismount, some in uniform, some not. The ones not in uniform move differently. They do not wait for instructions. They arrive with authority already attached to their bodies. Revolutionary Guard, local intelligence, maybe both. One of them points uphill toward the ridge where you are lying. They know, not precisely where, but they know the grammar of evasion well enough to read the landscape and find the sentence you are trying to write across it. You do not move for 3 hours. Stillness is its own kind of violence. Your body wants to run because movement feels like agency. SEROI instructors spent years drilling the correction into you. Movement without purpose is exposure at walking speed. So you wait. Heat builds under the rock shelves. Sweat traces lines down your neck into the collar of a flight suit that no longer looks like a flight suit. Your water supply drops by a quarter. At 0130, you power the radio. 3 seconds, static. Then a burst of encrypted noise that sounds like a language being spoken through water. Then silence. You shut it off. 3 seconds is enough to test the circuit. It is also enough for a direction-finding team to register a bearing. 1 bearing is a line. 2 bearings is a position. You will not give them 2. 20 minutes later, you try again, 2 seconds this time, and the radio catches something. Faint, broken, an authentication challenge transmitted through atmospheric noise and military encryption, and whatever remains of a satellite relay architecture built for exactly this scenario. You answer with the correct fragment. Then you wait 6 seconds. Each one feels structural, like the silence is a load-bearing wall, and if it holds for 1 more second, the entire architecture collapses. Then a voice. Compressed, clinical, no emotion, because emotion in this frequency is a luxury that costs bandwidth. Rescue coordination cell. You transmit position estimate, injuries, mobility, enemy activity observed. The reply arrives in pieces. Airspace contested, immediate extraction not feasible, evasion corridor under construction, possible ground facilitation, maintain a mission control, next contact window 4 hours, then the frequency goes dead. Possible ground facilitation. That phrase means one of 2 things. Either an asset network exists in this region capable of moving a downed pilot across hostile terrain, or headquarters is building one in real time through Kurdish intermediaries, intelligence contacts, smuggling networks, or some combination of all 3 assembled under pressure by people who have never met you and may not survive the favor. Every person who touches this chain becomes a target. You know that. Even now, Dawn does what Dawn always does to men who depend on darkness. It removes the only architecture that was keeping you alive alive. You are crossing a shallow saddle between ridges when the sound reaches you. Not a helicopter, something smaller. A distant electrical whine, followed by the flat mechanical hum of something unmanned, orbiting at an altitude designed to stay above rifle range and below satellite notice. Iran has drones. Not all of them are sophisticated. They do not need to be. A cheap sensor platform circling at 3,000 feet with a camera and a radio link can do something no human search team can sustain. It can watch without fatigue. It can orbit for hours while the men in trucks below drink tea and wait for the coordinates to update on their screens. Persistence is enough. Persistence has always been enough. You crawl beneath a shelf of rock and press your body into shadow so thin it barely qualifies as concealment. Sunlight floods the slope around you. The temperature climbs. Your water is at half. You do the calculation that every survival instructor teaches and every student hopes to never perform. Current supply divided by estimated exertion, divided by ambient heat, divided by distance remaining. The answer is not a number. The answer is a feeling. The feeling is that math has stopped being your friend. At 0930, you see the first civilians. A shepherd moving along a hillside 400 meters east. Two boys trailing behind him. They have not seen you. Maybe. Civilian contact during evasion is a gamble built on variables you cannot control. A frightened farmer becomes a local hero by making one phone call. A sympathetic villager shelters you for a night and then is interrogated for names he does not have. He gives descriptions instead. Descriptions are enough. And the children. A child's memory is not a security clearance. It does not expire. It does not get redacted. It does not require a warrant to access. A child who sees your face at 0930 on a Tuesday can describe it with perfect clarity in a police station on Wednesday. Children remember because they have not yet learned which details are supposed to be forgotten. You freeze against the rock until the shepherd and his boys pass beyond the ridge. Then the hours begin. Stillness broken only by the drone's orbit and the occasional engine noise from a road you cannot see. Your mind begins running scenarios. Capture at a checkpoint, capture in a village, capture by district police and then transferred upward, capture by the guard directly. You run every version. Every version ends in the same room. Fluorescent light, a chair, questions that begin as medical concern and become something else within the hour. That room exists somewhere right now, clean, prepared, waiting for you specifically. The second radio window delivers coordinates and a single instruction. Move to a dry reservoir south of a village called Sarvabad. Arrive by 2200. Observe for a green chem light flash twice at ankle height. If absent, continue west and do not stop. No mention of who will be waiting, no description, no name. Compartmentalization survives even at the edge of capture because if you are taken in the next 6 hours, you cannot betray what you were never given. The approach consumes the entire afternoon and most of the following night. You move through terrain that punishes every shortcut. Twice you drop flat as vehicles pass on the road above. Headlights sweeping across rock and scrub, painting shadows that could contain a man or could contain nothing. Once you hear dogs, not close, close enough. Once you hear men speaking Farsi at a distance, where you can separate individual voices. One is irritated, one is tired, they are arguing about sectors. Searchers who have been walking for hours and are angry that the American has not made himself convenient. You smile at that, then the smile disappears because one of them says the word pilot and the word is closer than the voices suggested. Sound travels differently downhill. You press yourself into a fold of earth and wait until their footsteps fade into a direction that is not yours. You reach the reservoir at 2147. 13 minutes early. It is a depression of cracked mud and dead reeds surrounded by low stone walls and rusted agricultural equipment abandoned long enough to become landscape. You lie in darkness with the pistol drawn and your breathing deliberately slowed to a rate that produces the least possible noise. 10 minutes, 20. The reservoir smells of stagnant water and mineral dust and something organic that has been decomposing without interruption. Then from the far side, 2 brief green flashes at ankle height. Not a flashlight, a chem light cupped inside a hand that knows how to control light the way a musician controls volume. You do not move immediately. Good tradecraft assumes deception first. You challenge in Farsi using the phrase printed on your evasion card. The answer returns wrong by one word, then corrected immediately in Arabic, carrying a Kurdish accent thick enough to feel unrehearsed, not polished, human, nervous, real enough. Two men, one middle-aged, one young, smugglers or former smugglers by the way they move through darkness, without flashlights and without hesitation. Their truck is hidden in a stand of trees beyond the stone wall. They do not ask your name. You do not ask theirs. The older man does not offer his hand. In his world, a handshake with an American is not a greeting, it is evidence. Evidence can be extracted from memory under the right kind of pressure. He points west and begins talking. The older man says checkpoints on the main road, police in the village, guard teams working the southern ridge. He says a cousin knows a route through farm tracks and abandoned quarries that threads toward the border region without crossing any road wide enough to have a name. He says if they are stopped, you are a sick relative being transported for medical care. He says this while looking directly at your 6-foot frame, your foreign bone structure, and the remains of a flight suit disguised with dirt and desperation. It is a poor cover. But poor covers sometimes work because no one standing at a checkpoint at 3 in the morning expects a lie this fragile to be attempted. You ride beneath a tarp, among fertilizer sacks and machine parts that smell of grease and ammonia. The truck moves through darkness at a speed calibrated to attract no attention. Every brake application compresses your chest. Every approaching engine from the opposite direction sounds like the end of the corridor you have been crawling through since the ejection seat fired. At one checkpoint, the truck stops completely. 8 minutes. You count them because counting is the only form of control available to a man lying under a tarp with a pistol he cannot use. Voices outside. A flashlight beam moving across the fabric above your face, close enough that you can see the weave illuminate. The younger man laughs. Too loud. Forced. Money changes hands, or cigarettes, or both. Then movement again. Your fingers stay wrapped around the grip the entire time, though you understand with complete clarity that one pistol at a checkpoint is not resistance. It is punctuation at the end of a sentence nobody wants to finish. Near dawn, the truck deposits you in a stone hut above a ravine. A radio battery, stale bread, a blanket saturated with diesel. The older man says the final stretch must be on foot. Too many patrols, too much attention. He traces a route in the dust with his finger. Then he pauses. He says American in English, taps his chest, says family in Halabja. You understand. Chemical weapons, 1988. 5,000 dead in a single afternoon. The borderlands remember everything. Who intervened? Who looked away? Who bombed? Who protected? Who betrayed? Memory here is not history. Memory is operational terrain. It can shelter you tonight and deliver you tomorrow depending on which chapter the person standing in front of you is still living inside. The final day is the worst because hope enters the equation. Until now, survival has been procedural. Step, hide, wait, move, repeat. Once the border becomes imaginable, your body begins spending energy it does not have. Your knee locks on descents. Your vision narrows at the edges. Around noon, a helicopter sweeps the ravine behind you and fires nothing. Observation only, but observation is enough because 30 minutes later, vehicles appear below vectoring from coordinates the helicopter provided. The search has tightened. Someone reported the truck, or the checkpoint guard remembered too much, or the drone caught movement where no movement belongs. It does not matter which. The machine is closing. You run the last 2 miles because there is no doctrine for the final stretch. There is only the body and what it remembers about being hunted. Across a dry riverbed, up a cut in the rock, through thorn that opens skin and loose stone that gives way under boots not designed for climbing. A burst of rifle fire cracks from somewhere down slope. Inaccurate, but close enough to change the texture of the air around your head. Close enough to make breathing feel like a decision rather than a reflex. You do not return fire. One pistol against rifles at range is not combat. It is announcement, you keep climbing. Then the radio comes alive one final time. 3 words transmitted without preamble or protocol or anything that sounds like a human being who has time to be careful. Strobe, strobe, strobe. You crest the ridge and the world rearranges itself. Below on the far side, 2 helicopters are knifing low through the border corridor under escort from aircraft you cannot see but can hear in the upper registers of the sky. One is already flaring into a patch of dust while armed men spill from the doors and establish a perimeter that will exist for seconds and must be enough. The border here is not a fence. It is a line on maps, a negotiation between states that project force and deny presence simultaneously. The rescue package has crossed it anyway. That decision was made by people who calculated escalation ladders and radar coverage and political cost and decided that the risk of retrieving one pilot was smaller than the risk of leaving him. You trigger the infrared strobe and start down. The extraction takes 43 seconds. Hands grabbing your vest, authentication questions, a medic cutting your sleeve with shears that sound louder than the rotors, dust and hydraulic fluid, and the particular vibration of a machine that is already banking hard west before the doors are fully closed. Rounds climb from the Iranian side. Too late, too low. The tracers arc beneath the fuselage and disappear into geography that is no longer your problem. Nobody cheers, nobody says anything cinematic. The crew chief keeps one gloved hand on your shoulder for the entire flight. Not medical, not tactical, confirmational. You are physically present. You are not a report. You are not a statistic. You are a body that is still breathing inside a machine that is carrying you toward a debrief you will spend hours inside, and a classified silence you will spend years inside. They will ask for timelines, routes, faces, accents, checkpoint procedures, drone patterns. They will want the tactical picture and the intelligence gaps and the things the enemy did well that nobody predicted. They will thank you in the controlled language institutions use when emotion would complicate the filing system. Then the machinery will close around the event like water closing over a stone. Public statements will say almost nothing. Diplomatic cables will say less. Somewhere in Iran, men will be disciplined for failing to catch you. Somewhere else, the two smugglers will disappear. Into the hills or into cells. You do not know which. You do not know which possibility keeps you awake longer. And somewhere this week, another pilot will walk across a flight line at dawn. She will climb into a cockpit that still smells of the previous sortie. She will zip a flight suit over a body that has not yet learned what it will be asked to survive. She will carry a sidearm and a blood chit and a set of coordinates and the quiet understanding that if the aircraft fails in the wrong place, the mission does not end at ejection. It becomes something older than aviation, older than radar, older than borders drawn on maps by men who never had to cross them on foot while bleeding. One human being, hostile territory, moving between ridgelines while a state hunts for the sound of breathing. The technology changes, the arrangement does not.